Now, what I believe is that the pace of innovation in Britain is going to determine our place in the world in a general sense. And there's no doubt the pace of technological change is breathtaking, but the pace of change in governmental terms is certainly not that. So I think the challenge that we face is actually in many ways for government and for politicians to kind of catch up with what's going on in the real world. I think that access to communication technology and access to the internet underpins and enables innovation. And certainly for the next 10 or 20 years, I think the pace at which we connect our citizens and connect ourselves, it will actually underpin the progress we make both economically and socially. But I agree that digital exclusion really strongly collates with social exclusion. If you look at the groups that are excluded, who don't have computers, the groups that don't have reasonable internet access, it's very, very similar to the groups that we see as disadvantaged in society. So I think digital inclusion is in some ways a proxy for social exclusion, and I wonder whether a lot of the policies that we look at and a lot of the things that government do can tick both boxes. Now, the United Kingdom is a digitally developed country, and there's no doubt that if people are connected, it helps in terms of it helps both socially, economically, and democratically. In terms of educational levels of understanding of technology and the ability to relate to technology is quite important. But there's a line above which people find it slightly more difficult to access technology. People with disabilities, not necessarily just physical disabilities, but those who may have dyslexia or dyspraxia or other kind of learning difficulties, again, find it very hard to get involved. And location is also important when we think about connectivity. So a lot of rural areas, people find it quite difficult to get on board. So I think if our technological inclusion, our digital inclusion goes up, then I think also our social inclusion should increase. Now, the current situation is about 60% of people in the UK have access to broadband. About 17 million people don't have computers at all. When it comes to speed of internet access, we are 21st out of the sort of top 30 countries. So in terms of our speed of access, there's a bit of a way to go. Broadly speaking, we're a first world nation when it comes, I would say, to connectivity and in many other ways, but I would say we're more like a developing nation when it comes to the speeds and giving access to those more distant parts of the country. Now, the government knows it's a challenge, and the government recognises the importance of next generation technology, and that's great. I don't think I agree, I share your sentiments. It was a bit like John Major said, I think it was in 92, 93. He said that actually we share most of the same goals. The question is the means by which we get there. To put in a little dig, I do think that the ambition for 2 megabit access by 2012 is a pretty low ambition. And the reason I say that is because actually the majority of broadband users already experience 3.6 megabit connectivity. So I do accept it's a good goal to have, but I just don't think it's ambitious. In terms of the Conservative perspective, David Cameron talks about the post-bureaucratic age. And it's really about the delayering of society, and it's about access to government almost in a level way. So the citizen can interact directly with government services and can interact directly with politicians and the establishment. Our vision, if you like, is for an open society, a connected society, and a very content-rich experience when people use both the internet and high-speed connections. In this race to the top economically, and also in terms of the social inclusion debate, it's very important actually that we open up some of these data sets within government departments, but we open it up so that people can have access to data sets and can create their social networking sites based on the data. Maybe we can have Google Maps for traffic black spots, maybe we can have the raw data at some point for these accident black spots and for health outcomes across the country. So I think there are lots of data sets within the public domain which, quite frankly, taxpayers have paid for, and if they were opened up, I think it could generate greater economic and social and democratic benefits if that were possible. There are some challenges for that, but that's something that we're looking at very closely. I think the speed of connectivity definitely determines whether or not we're going to be one of these leading nations as we come through this downturn, this recession. The reason that it underpins economic competitiveness is because if you look at some of the biggest companies in the world, Reuters, a lot of these large companies, Google, are based on data. They're based on high-speed access to data. A lot of the things we do day by day are based on high-speed internet access. But certainly for entertainment services, whether it's the BBC iPlayer, I was at a technology seminar the other day, they were talking about iPads, care for the elderly. And wouldn't it be lovely if your grandparents or your elderly relatives actually had nice big screens in their apartments or in their homes, and technology where they could see their grandchildren and chat to other people during the day. Now, you're not going to achieve those sort of connections unless you have a high-speed network behind it. And again, look at all the things we do day by day, look at the commercial interest in payroll packages, open source software like Open Office, and Microsoft are now moving towards the model where the main software application is online. With the current bandwidth we have, I think we're going to have an enormous challenge to actually achieve the outcomes that we can get from those things. When it comes to people and democracy, well, information on government, lots of websites about. I apologise, mine isn't as modern as it could be, but access to politicians, access to manifestos. If you want to check a speech or a blog, you need good access. So why do we need to address it? Well, I think that for democratic reasons, for the social reasons, and for economic reasons. And also there's another key area. Well, let's look at Open University. What a fantastic organisation. They can deliver a lot of their course content online. They even deliver it through Second Life with avatars. They're beginning to deliver it abroad. We may not have an empire based on gunboat diplomacy, but perhaps there's a possibility we could have an empire based on our educational prowess and spreading our educational abilities throughout the world. And again, if you look at Learn Direct, well, I've got to sign in. I've done the basic grammar test. What they're looking at now is developing applications where it's not just a text-based with small pictures, but actually it's more like an interactive game. So you're driven compulsively to the next level of learning. And I think for people who are disconnected from the education system early on, it's a great way back in because they can do it at their own pace, their own time, anywhere they happen to be, whilst in the background you've got somebody from Learn Direct or another organisation giving them a telephone call or an email from time to time if they see they're not keeping up with the pace. So I think there are some great opportunities, certainly in the educational world, but we require high-speed access in order to deliver them. And in healthcare, everyone's used to trundling down to their GP. If you have an operation, you've got to stay in a hospital bed for 3 or 4 days. If you've got a heart condition, then you have to keep popping back to the GP or the PCT. But what a great opportunity with telemedicine. There are lots of wonderful devices now. You can take a picture of your skin, just email it in, and it will tell you what your blood sugar levels are. You've got other devices you wear around your arm or maybe around your chest, where actually you can report directly using pretty high-speed connections, to directly to either your surgeon or your general practitioner, and you don't need to get on the bus, you don't need to get in your car and travel in and out or take a day off work. That information is fed straight through. So in order to enable these kind of advances, in order to enable a 21st century economy, if you like, I think that the speed of internet access, the speed of communication is essential, but also it needs to be socially inclusive, so those people that we wish to reach in a caring society are able to be involved in this process as well. So the Conservative position is actually it's quite an optimistic one. And I think the assurance I can give is we're pretty much onto this. We're very engaged in the debate. Jeremy Hunt has already announced that what we'll be looking for as a major objective is high-speed next-generation access. And when we say high-speed, we mean like above 20 megabit, maybe towards 100 megabit, within the next 5 years. Small things, but make quite a big difference. It's actually just opening up the ducts that arrive in people's houses, opening them up to all suppliers so they can put their own cabling in there and don't necessarily have to rely on British Telecom to put the core cabling in. We were quite fast off the mark with deregulating for telecoms many years ago. It put us at the forefront in that respect. We're probably slightly further ahead than the US. We also enabled the satellite and cable communications abilities that we have today, and I'm confident and I'm optimistic, and I know the team I work with, they're a young, energetic team, that we can do it again for high-speed broadband and communications. And I think in that way we can release people not to be under state control, but to actually choose to do those things they wish to do, to include them in the democratic process, and hopefully actually begin to narrow that divide between rich and poor. Thanks very much.